That's this is very nicely demonstrating the fallacy of this Mayavada paradox. You see. Anyway, so now to get back to the original point, which I totally forgotten before the joke, but yes, the theme being that Brahman has no shakti. So, therefore, this world is a kind of chaos. I was mentioning this to you already about this Mr. Van der Broek. The idea from Nietzsche that the world is chaos. Chaos, means confusion. So that there is actually no sense to this world. And therefore, the order of this world, the seeming order that we see, like hierarchical order, that there are some more important people, less important people, more advanced, less advanced, more wealthy, whatever. This hierarchical order, it is just an illusion or just a cheating, like Van der Broek was saying, religion is just, Nietzsche says, the revenge of the priests upon the people. The priests are themselves very frustrated, and so they impose, when they have power, they impose upon society a kind of crippling morality intended to give simply trouble to people, to tell them what you're doing is wrong, you are sinful, you are evil, you're bad, and they'll feel bad about themselves and want to get out of their bad condition. And then the priest said, then you have to bow down to me, or to, come to me, give me money, give me, support my teachings, this, that. So in this way, the priest or the religious leader or the guru, whoever he is, he ascends to a very nice, comfortable material position, playing with people's guilt issues. See, telling them, you're bad, you're sinful. You see. So one who has gone through this, had bad experiences in this, and their tendency, there's a lot of things that crop up. Their tendency is then to view theology, in other words, the science of God or the study of God. The whole thing is simply a social construct. The whole idea of God, the notion of God, everything is socially constructed. This is a very prominent idea today, particularly in philosophy. That human values, and it does go back to Nietzsche quite largely, that all human values, beginning with religion, if we take religion as the top value, this is all constructed by human beings. It's all a result of human interaction, you see. And it has no existence beyond the human realm. Man has made God, in other words. And more than that, man has made all morality. This was one of Nietzsche's major points of his philosophy. That morality is only relative. In other words, morality is just what you think or what I think is good or bad. But the universe itself has no such value system. The universe itself is chaos, which is opposed to cosmos again. Cosmos, from this word, of course we've got our modern cosmos, meaning universe, but another word has come from this old Greek word, cosmetic. So women, especially, when they decorate themselves, and put on nice makeup, this is a kind of order they're bringing to themselves to look beautiful, to look attractive. Therefore it's got that term cosmetic, because that's the actual original sense of cosmos. It's not just blank universe, but a cosmos that is wonderful, that is ordered and structured and beautiful. And this is actually a Krishna conscious conception. What is that? Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati is this line, Vishwapurna Sukhayate, that by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by his merciful sidelong glance, he describes so many wonderful effects that come from being blessed by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. And the last one he mentions is Vishvapurna Sukhayati. Then for that person who has received this blessing, the whole universe becomes full of sukh, happiness. He sees everything as wonderful, the whole creation, as a wonderful display of the Lord's mercy, actually. Prabhupada says, the whole point of this material world, material universe, is that we may go back home, back to Godhead. So therefore the actual foundation of this material world is a very nice thing. It's Krishna's mercy. And it just depends on how you look at things. Like Prabhupada says, make the best of a bad bargain. You can point out, Prabhupada says, you can see faults in this material world, but there are also bright side. There's dark side and bright side to everything, because this is a world of dvandva, duality. So Prabhupada said Vaishnava. Vaishnava means, this is one definition he gave of Vaishnava. Vaishnava or Shadjana, pure soul, then his nature is to look on the bright side. In other words, his nature is to see the Krishna Sambandha, the connection to Krishna. And that's what I told you. Nirapeksha, the pure devotee, he only sees that. In fact, pure devotee deals with all other living entities as devotees. He relates to all other living. Therefore you see, I was explaining the other night, Srimati Radharani, who is topmost devotee of all. Number one devotee of Krishna. No one surpasses her devotion. But when she is missing Krishna, when she is in this ecstasy of vivaha, separation from Krishna, then she will go and pray to every resident of Vrindavan. You know, she is not only Madhura Rasa, which is the topmost rasa, but she is the very concentrated form of that rasa herself. In other words, there are other gopis in Madhura Rasa. And among all these gopis, Lalita, Vishaka, they are so advanced in Madhura Rasa. But who are Lalita and Vishaka serving? Srimati Radharani. Because she is the very wellspring of this rasa. She is Hladini Shakti herself. Therefore it is said, Govinda Nandini Radha, Govinda Mohani, Govinda Savasa Savakanti Shromani. So, Govinda, Mohani Radha, who can bewilder Govinda? Only Radharani, by her love. Govinda Sarvasa, who is everything to Govinda? Srimati Radharani. Govinda Nandani Radha, who is most dear to Govinda? Srimati Radharani. Therefore, Sarva Kanta Shiromani. Sarva Kanta Shiromani means of all his consorts, she is the Shiromani, means the crown jewel. She is the foremost. Because she is the very wellspring of this Hladini, this Madhura Shringera Ras. So she is topmost devotee. But when she is in this, because her mood of love is Viraha Bhakti, which means devotion in separation. She's her Divyonmada, her divine madness. This manifests when she is missing Krishna. Then you see the true nature, the true extent of her love. It's not actually when Krishna is there. Of course, she's very happy when Krishna is there with her. But when he's gone from her, then her ecstasy increases. Her ecstasy, which is already unlimited, increases millions and millions and millions of times more. So this same Radharani, topmost devotee, when she is missing Krishna, then she is going to every resident of Vrindavan, which means even the trees, even the birds, even the deer, even the bumblebee, And like a mad woman, she's talking to them. Where is Krishna? You know Krishna. You are his devotee. You bumblebee, you are always collecting nectar, the nectar of his lotus feet. You know where Krishna is. You tell me where Krishna is. And she begins to cry. So she goes to Bumblebee. Now Bumblebee, conventionally we say, oh, that is Shantaras. That is only the beginning. And Radharani, she's so great. And why is she going to Bumblebee? And asking, where is Krishna? So anyway, this is revealing the actual heart of pure devotee. Pure devotee does not think of himself as great. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is also Radha Krishna in one form, he declares his position. Gopi Bratur Padakamalyor Dasa 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 Anudasa. Servant of the servant of the servant. In one translation, Prabhupada says, millions of times removed. In other words, servant of the servant of the servant of the servant. Ad infinitum of those who had the fortune to serve directly the lotus feet of Shri Radha and Krishna. So, this is what it means to see Krishna everywhere. You see, one can only do this when one is humble, totally humble in heart. So, again, lost the track, but it had something to do. Had something to do with the doctrine of the universe being chaos, out of order. So I'll pick it up in this way. Yes, they say that everything is socially constructed in order to force some humility, some good behavior on people, so that they will be pliable for manipulation. You see, this is how... Oh yes, no, the point I was making. Now I remember. Good side, bad side, yes. So devotee sees everything in relationship to Krishna. Everything, yes, that is the point. Therefore Srimati Radharani is even asking Bumblebee, where is Krishna? This is Nirapeksha, to see Krishna everywhere, even in the bumblebee. And similarly Mahabhagavata in this world, he sees everything and everyone in relationship to Krishna. Therefore he deals so nicely with everyone. Even, therefore it is said, Dhira Dhira Janapriyo. The 6 Goswamis, they were dear to everyone, even the ruffians. Not only to the Dhira, Dhira means those who are self-controlled, who are already on some, in advanced spiritual position, but also Adhira, those who are ruffian, uncontrolled. They respected, they loved the Goswami. Because the Goswami, there's a saying, if you deal with a person as a saint, then you force him in a nice way. You force him to be a saint. If you only relate to him as a saintly person, very respectful, as we're supposed to do, address one another as Prabhu, then you oblige that person to be nice, to be sadhu. So this the pure devotee does most powerfully. You see, then by his presence, everyone becomes purified. But then there are those who see everything on the dark side. You see, so this is the relationship, and the comparison is honeybee and fly. Honeybee goes to the sweet flowers to collect honey, brings the honey to the hive, and so the hive is dripping with honey, very sweet. This is the attraction of a honeybee, to sweetness. But fly, where will fly go? He'll go to the stool, he'll go to the open bloody sore, you see? Nasty. He has attraction to nasty things. This is the fly, it's a mentality, it's a taste. Or there's a comparison of a bird called kukil in Bengali, kukil, and the kaka. Kaka means the crow. So the kukil will only take nectar. Similarly also, only will take the sweet thing as its food. And the crow will take the neem seed. There's this tree. It's known all over India, but especially Bengal. You know, Lord Chaitanya was called Nimai Pandit because he was born under neem tree. And neem tree has this very strong, sour kind of taste. The leaves are medicinal. It's not enjoyable to put a neem leaf in your mouth. It's a very strong medicinal effect, but it's purifying. That's good, but not at all tasty. Quite the opposite. But a crow will eat the seed of the neem tree. He enjoys that. The kokil bird, on the other hand, will never touch such thing. He's only attracted to sweet nectarian things. And there's so many examples are there. I've seen myself swan when they had Miami Temple. Now it's moved to a different address, but they used to, at one stage in the history of the temple in Miami in Florida, they had a kind of, it was almost a farm, not quite enough land to be called a farm, but it was something, quite a big piece of land out on the outskirts of the city. So there was much nature there. So they had a big pond on the property, and there were swans in the pond, and there was also a mango grove. A grove of mango trees near the pond. So I used to watch when I was visiting there for a few days. I used to see every morning, because in the night mangoes drop from the tree onto the ground. Then every morning the swans would come out of the pond, and they would, it was interesting to watch them, because they would go and then they would walk or kind of waddle, and they would go to where the mangoes had fallen, and they would relish eating those mangoes. You'd see the swans dipping their beaks into these mangoes and eat them. And then when they would go back to the pond, it was kind of a very cute thing to see. Their bellies were so big that they were dragging on. It was harder for them to walk because their bellies were dragging in the grass. So they were going much slower. Finally they got to the water. So there are those, you see these two classes everywhere. The living entities that are attracted to sweetness, to niceness, to goodness, and living entities who are attracted to the dark side, harshness, bitterness. And so it is also in the taste of the human mind. There are human minds who lean to see the good things in life, and they're also faithful and inclined to believe in God, and inclined to find good association. And then you see those who are inclined to skepticism, to darkness, to disagree, to harshness, and not just harshness and criticizing, but just harsh ideas. The hard-nosed realist. There's one person, I think he's made his email address, hard-nosed realist. So, very fond of skepticism and criticism and these kind of things. So it's a taste. You see, this is the thing we have to understand. This is the most honest philosophers. And I'm speaking of Western philosophy. Most honest have admitted that all philosophy, your personal philosophy of life, and all great philosophies, whatever you call them, Socratic philosophy, Platonic philosophy, Marxist philosophy, this, that, Nietzschean philosophy, all of it starts with first principles, first assumptions. In other words, an attitude. There must be a beginning. Nietzsche used this word in German, Weltanschauung, a beginning view of the world. You see, this is where it starts. You have a starting point attitude, and then your logic proceeds from that. But it is never seen that by logic starting from nowhere, you arrive at the wealth anchon, at a worldview, at a first principle, at an attitude. It's not that you just start to, think with a tabula rasa, blank slate. Just start to think thoughts, and one thought leads to another, leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. And then, I think I'll be a skeptic. You see? I suppose I'll be a skeptic. I suppose that's the most logical thing. Or someone else thinks, and then I suppose I'll be a believer. It doesn't work that way. No. First you start, I'm a skeptic. First you start, I'm a believer. And then you construct a train of logic to make arguments why you're a skeptic or why you're a believer. That's actually the way it goes. So therefore, such examples are given of bumblebee and fly, of kokil and kaka, and other such things. It's a question of taste. It's a question of your taste. Your rasa. What is your rasa? And then from that rasa, a philosophy unfolds. So there are those, yes, and taste means experience. Taste means experience, and experience means our fortune. Good fortune or bad fortune. You see, so if one is unfortunate, like this Andre van der Braak, then first he tried to be a Buddhist for 5 years, and then he found this guru named Andrew Cohen. I looked him up on the internet. That's a very interesting story. This is a very interesting sampradaya, actually. Because Andrew Cohen, he went to India to find a guru. And he looked all over, and then he finally found in Lucknow one man who was supposedly a disciple of a famous Mayavadi named Ramana Maharshi, who died in 1950. He's still well known. So then this Cohen, he accepted this guru, a man named Punja, I think. Yes, Punja. But later on, because Punja dared to criticize his disciple, Andrew Cohen, that you're too puffed up. Therefore, this Andrew Cohen had the realization that my guru is not bona fide. Because he has criticized me. He said I'm puffed up. And then he rejected this Punja. After having gotten enlightenment from him, he realized that my guru is not enlightened, so he rejected it. And then he became guru himself. You see. Then it turns out that this guru, Punja, Indian guru, that actually this, who claimed to be disciple of Ramana Maharshi, it turns out that Ramana Maharshi had no disciples. So and Ramana Maharshi himself he's not a Shankara Advaita. He's a Mayavadi, but just self-made, self-manifest. He had no formal connection to Shankaracharya anyway. So he is a self-made guru. And Punja was not even his real disciple, but claimed, somehow to be disciple. Then Andrew Cohen, who became disciple of Punja, rejected Punja, but remained guru. And then Andre van der Braak became his disciple and rejected him. And now is a teacher, now is, in other words, a guru himself. And the interesting I found on the internet, I found an interview with this Andrew Cohen, and you know what he said in the interview? He said, one thing I know for sure is that I don't know. And this is what Van der Braak said in the program. So he's still saying the same thing. So it's very, as I say, very humorous. You see, you find a guru who's not a guru, you become his disciple, you learn from him that to know is not to know. Then you reject that guru, and then you go on being a guru yourself, teaching that to know is not to know. I know that I don't know. Many nights philosophy. So this is, anyway, you see. So this is misfortune. This is my point. This is misfortune. So there are those who, it's due to their karma, they have an unfortunate experience. They attempt spiritual life, but they go about it the wrong way. That is their misfortune. And then they fail in their attempts. And because of that bad experience, then they become skeptical, they become, you see, negative. And then they start to write off all religion, just like this Andre Vanderbroek. He tried to be a Buddhist and he tried to be a Mayavadi, and from that experience he knows all about religious experience all over the world. That it's all cheating. You see? There's no such, the very idea of a guru is bad, the very idea of God is bad, the very idea of religious scripture, absolute teaching is bad, and I know from my experience. And then when you find out what his experience was, it's rather laughable. You see. He never had contact with any bona fide sampradaya. So this is what I mean. It's finally taste. It comes down to taste. So there are those who have taste for this harsh, negative worldview. And there are those who have taste for the bright side. And Prabhupada said, Vaishnava, he sees things on the bright side. And that doesn't mean that Vaishnava is necessarily, we see there are different classes of Vaishnavas. So, yeah, some devotees, they may be naive, that's true. They may be naive, they may be a little too open to everything. That is also, the error of that is that, you see, you cannot imitate the Mahabhagavata. The Mahabhagavata is actually nirapeksha. He actually by realization sees Krishna everywhere, sees everything in Krishna. But if you're not Mahabhagavata, but you're still like, oh, Krishna, you see, and that's a kind of, in some way or other, maybe not intentionally, but it is a kind of imitation. And that is not good. We should not imitate. Rather, we should follow, just like we see that Gaurkishore Das Babaji. He is Nirapeksha Vaishnava. He is the very model of this, what is meant Mahabhagavata, Uttama Adhikari. Because he was totally detached, totally disconnected from material affairs. And he was just wandering around Navadvip and also going to Vrindavan. His movements were very mysterious. He was always chanting the holy name. He was always absorbed in total vairagya, renunciation of sense gratification. He arrived at the Yogapit Mat to visit his disciple Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He arrived in the middle of the night, and by this time he was blind. See, two things. It was jungle Krishna. So that's a non-controversial way of looking at this. But the more perhaps controversial way is that then api chet suracharo bhajite mamananyavak, that verse is there. That a sadhu may actually perform an abominable activity that is condemned, that will be condemned. You see, society will talk about him, oh, he has done this bad thing, blah, 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 blah. And it is not, there's no argument that, well, Krishna told him to do this. It's nothing like that. He did a bad thing. But Krishna says, if still in his heart he is ananya, in other words, he is a devotee at heart, and then his having done that bad thing will also be a religious act in the sense that he will learn from it. He will, you see, because Dharma means, what does Dharma basically mean? It means seeing the difference between good and evil, right and wrong. So as I said, we may be not immoral, we may be amoral. Our senses, mind just too strong. We're not mature. Like a child is amoral. A child is not immoral. A child is amoral. A child, little child, just doesn't know the difference between right and wrong. You see? So in one sense, child is, innocent, but still child may do bad things due to ignorance. So, devotee may be devotee at heart, but due to immaturity, he may do some bad thing. He may fall down, but then he learns from that. He learns from that. Because Prabhupada says, first class intelligence is what? To learn everything just by hearing. You just hear from spiritual master, you know and you act. But second class experience, you hear, but still you have to experience. And then that drives home the point. You see, all right, Guru said I shouldn't do this thing. I did it. And now I've seen, I shouldn't have done it. Guru is right. I surrender to my spiritual master. See, so in this sense, then even a sinful act performed by a devotee is dharma, because he makes advancement. So we had a discussion a couple nights ago. So what about someone, new devotee means not yet initiated, but trying to practice sadhana bhakti, but sometimes falls back. Sometimes is again smoking, again drinking. And so the question was, because I had said, this was in that Vandurbhak program too, I was saying to all the devotees there, and some were, this was Amsterdam. Everyone knows what kind of place Amsterdam is. And some of the devotees present were uninitiated, new, bhaktas like that, or not even bhaktas living in temple with friends. And so I was saying, they have all lost their taste for sense gratification. And that's how this question came up, later. But if I am sometimes slipping back into smoking and drinking, how is it that I've lost my taste? How you can say that, Maharaj, to everyone? It makes me feel a little bad. It makes me feel ashamed when I'm there and you're saying about everyone. And so I asked him, I said, but how do you feel when you're smoking, when you're drinking? How do you feel? He said, I feel terrible. I feel terrible. As soon as I start to do this, I'm thinking, why am I doing this? Why am I in so much Maya? And I don't enjoy it at all. And I said, see, so you don't have taste for it. You actually do not have taste for sense gratification. You are that category Narada Muni speaks about, rasagraha. You have actually gotten the rasa by your association with devotees, advanced devotees. You have gotten the rasa, but somehow you fall back, but you can't forget that rasa, that higher taste of chanting Hare Krishna. Narada Muni says, Mukundangri, the nectar of the lotus feet of the Lord, which means the nectar of Vaishnava association, because Vaishnava, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, we pray to the spiritual master, he's always at Lord Vishnu's lotus feet. That's the situation of Vaishnava, at Vishnu Padaya. So to taste the nectar of the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu means to have experienced the nectar of devotee association. And one who is rasagraha, graha, like it's a Sanskrit word, but we have a similar English word, grab. It sounds almost the same. Graha, grab. He has seized it. He has taken it. He has taken it to heart. And he can't forget it. So maybe he slips back because of immaturity again. Not fully developed. He's devotee, but he's like baby devotee in a sense. Spiritually a baby, spiritually a little child. So the morality, devotional morality is not fully developed yet. So he slips back due to weakness, whatever. But then, even while engaged in the sense gratification, he's remembering again and again the nectar of the lotus feet of the Lord and thinking, what is this nonsense I'm doing? So Narada Muni says such a person is not to be considered of this material world. That's his state. And when he falls down, so to speak, Narada Muni says he does not really fall. This is the same point as apichat suratsuru. It is not really a fall down. Because why? Because he's learning. He's learning that there's no rasa in this business. So why? Then the question is, then why does he do it? Why does he do it? And the answer is because of addiction. Because his Maya, Prabhupada said, I remember what Srila Prabhupada said, because this was in the hippie days, when Prabhupada came to preach. So the hippies were all very fond of this drug, LSD. So Prabhupada said, he said, the real intoxicant is Maya. He said, LSD is just a little spice floating within the real intoxication, which is Maya, the ocean of Maya. So the real drug, the real addictive drug of this material existence is Maya herself. And drugs like LSD or heroin or whatever else people get entangled in, they're like spices, you know, like you may have sometimes a nimbu pani drink, lemon drink, and they put some, you know, anise seed in it or something. It gives it a special flavor, a few seeds floating on the top. So these drugs, they're like little seeds floating on the top of the real intoxication. And that's Maya itself. So Maya is addictive. This is the meaning of the word in Gita. Nibadnati, Krishna uses in 14th chapter. Conditioning. The living entity becomes conditioned, nibadnati. Conditioned by its association with Maya. Yes. So just like a heroin addict, he sticks the needle in, you know, the first time, so I've heard. I can honestly say I've never done that. That's one thing I never did. I never took heroin. But so I've heard and read. The first time someone tries this, it's a very horrible experience. It's like a simpler example is smoking, you know. Little kids, 9, 10 years old. This is a famous pastime of little kids. So one boy will sneak into daddy's closet and there's the box of cigars and he'll steal one cigar and run out and meet his friends. I had a cigar. And then they go in the back of the barn and they light up the cigar. They want to be big men, you see, so. And they're all vomiting. Horrible experience. But you become conditioned if you keep doing it. If your desire to be big man is so strong that again you steal cigar and again smoke and again do this, smoke cigarette, cigar, etc., etc. And gradually you start to like it. You start to think this is happiness. And same with heroin. But this is addiction. Then you can't give it up. You see? Then the bad effect of such enjoyment manifests. This smoking, leads to cancer. This heroin addiction leads to so many horrible things. But by that time he can't give it up. He's trapped. And Maya is killing him. And he can't give it up. And Prabhupada gives the example of how to catch an elephant. How do you catch an elephant? The elephant is such a big thing. How anyone can catch an elephant? Very easy. Prabhupada said, you dig a hole. Dig a big, deep hole and put some long grasses over it so that it looks like it's just ground. And then in front of that hole, or say in back of that hole actually, you chain one female elephant. And the only way to approach that female elephant is where the hole is. So the male elephant will smell the female elephant and become mad. Because he's addicted to sense gratification. So here he comes, big lumbering elephant, weighing so many tons, very powerful. You can't catch an elephant just throwing a rope around its nose or something. He'll just drag you, he'll throw you, he'll step on you. In 1 second, we're finished. But this big thing comes lumbering along, trumpeting, because he knows woman elephant is there. And then as he's trying to approach her, he steps into the hole and falls in. So then you have your elephant. So this is addiction, you see. And this is the primary addiction, this addiction to sex life. And then everything else is a derivative of that. So this is conditioning. And it goes very, very deep. And there's a nice saying, character is simply habit long formed. This is a very nice saying, very, very intelligent saying. Because everyone has their character. Character means, another definition of character, which is also very good, is character is what you do when no one is looking. That's the real you. When we're among people, then we all are Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. But when we're alone, when we think no one is, of course, Krishna is always looking. He's seeing everything in the heart. And then the way we act is the way we really are. That's our character. And character is habit long formed. That means, that's again karma. That means what we have been doing. And what we've become addicted to, habituated to. And that is our character. So we come to this Krishna consciousness movement after how many births? We can't say. And we're bringing with us a certain character, a certain nature, a certain construction of habits, which is our material personality. And so to think that overnight, you see, overnight, when we become, again, like I was saying, Nirapeksha, oh, Krishna everywhere. That is for most people absurd. It is just out of reach. So acharyas do not teach us like that. We see there's this nice video series called Srila Prabhupada Memories, and there's, all of them are nice. My godbrothers, godsisters, remembering Srila Prabhupada, and one that stands out in my mind is my old friend, he's a good friend of mine, Abhiram Prabhu, who stays in Delhi. So he begins his memories of Srila Prabhupada by saying that what really attracted me to Srila Prabhupada in the beginning was that he presented himself as a man, not a god. He said, because I had seen so many gurus before, so-called gurus. You know, this is what we're talking about, the Mayavadis. When they realize, then they say they're one with God. So I had seen so many gurus who are God. You see? Bhagavan, they call themselves. Bhagavan, Sri Satya Sai, or whatever. They put this Bhagavan in front. So they are God incarnate. He said, but I never could relate to that. I wanted spiritual life, but when I started searching, there were only these Bhagavans. See? This Bhagavan, that Bhagavan. And I thought, how am I going to make any progress? He's a God, or he claims to be a God, and I know what I am. I know that I am not God. And I do not see any way how I am going to become God. So just him sitting in his big seat and doing all these things, saying all these things, that's not going to help me. See, I need someone I can follow, who can show me how to get from here to transcendence. And he said, I only saw that when I met Srila Prabhupada, because Prabhupada was not putting on airs that I am God, I am. Prabhupada was immediately, first thing, saying, I am servant of God. We are all servants of God. In other words, Prabhupada, by saying that, was putting himself in my category. Not as fallen soul, but we are servants. That is our position. And you either serve Krishna directly or indirectly. Directly means as devotee you serve Krishna. Indirectly means you serve Maya. But we serve. That is our position. I said, because Prabhupada presented himself as man. Not in the sense of ordinary man, but but his Prabhupada's Leela, the whole story of his life. So he also he was also born like us and grew up in a family like us, and he went to school like we did, and he learned Western education like we did. And then as young man, he became a kind of radical, like most of us. Only he was following Gandhi. Gandhi at that time in India was considered radical, left-wing politics against the government, British government. So Prabhupada even did that. And then Prabhupada met his spiritual master. Prabhupada got married, he had children, many children Prabhupada had. And he tried to be businessman, and all of this Prabhupada went through. Then he met his spiritual master, and gradually, you see in Prabhupada's Leela, did he accept initiation like that? No. 11 years. It took him 11 years before he received initiation from his spiritual master. So Prabhupada said, when I first met my spiritual master, then I accepted him in the heart. But he didn't consider himself worthy to accept initiation right away. So he waited 11 years. And then slowly, he started his preaching. You see, it was not immediate. So Abhiram Prabhu was saying, I could really relate to that. You see, that it takes time, and Prabhupada showed that. And so he said, I found hope. That was for me was such an important lesson. It gave me hope that yes, if I follow similarly, then I can also come to pure Krishna consciousness. Okay. I think I really have to stop now. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Suhotra Maharaj ki jai.